Hello and welcome to this introductory case study in this course, Master in Game Theory. So, in this lecture, we will talk about this case study of careers taken after learning game theory. And this is a fascinating area because game theory doesn't just shape economics or mathematics, it has become the foundation of strategic thinking across careers in areas like business, technology, public policy, negotiation, and even AI, right? And here we have a interesting case study for students like you who are professionals or students in the universities anywhere in the world who are learning game theory and wondering, you know, how to translate that into knowledge into real career, right? So that's what we have for you in this course. So let's take a look at this case study. Is the strategic move. The name of the case study is the strategic move, and where we look at how could one turn game theory learning into a career advantage. So this is, how one learner use game theory to make better decisions, right? Influence stakeholders and create a successful career path, right? And the audience, of course, are students and earlier career professionals like you who have learned or are still learning game theory and want to apply it in real world careers, right? And it is inspired by real applications of game theory in companies, great companies like Google, Uber, McKinsey, and World Bank. So let's get on with this case study, right? So, what was the challenge in this case study? So name mask, face mask, the person that we will talk about is Elena, a 24-year-old economics graduate from Warsaw, Poland, who had completed an online course in game theory and strategic decision making, like many of you will be doing. And she loved the intellectual excitement of Nash equilibria, zero sum game, and payoff matrices. But when she graduated, she faced a dilemma, right? The dilemma was, how do I actually use game theory in my real job, in a real job? And thanks to game theory, she had received three jobs offered, right? One was a marketing analyst, the position at a consumer goods firm. Second was a policy research assistant role in a think tank. And third was a strategic and a pricing analyst role in a global rideshare company, right? And each sounded interesting, each seemed interesting, but she wanted a role where she could use strategic thinking, not just routine analysis. So that was her challenge, right? So let's take a look at the deeper aspect of the challenge. Now, Elena realized that, knowing game theory doesn't automatically make you strategic. You must translate abstract concepts into practical framework, like predicting, you know, uh, competitor moves, understanding incentives, right, and managing cooperation. And she decided to take a risk. She chose the right sharing company, right, where because it operated in a highly competitive multiplayer market, and that was the perfect world for game, right, of the game theory. Her personal challenge, she articulated to herself, was that can I use game theory thinking to stand out and drive measurable business impact in 6 months? So that is what she wanted to do. So let's take a look at the framework Elena used for applying game theory to career excellence. And this was a SMART play, SMART, acronym for what she did. And what did it stand for? Let's take a look at as we go forward. So first step was to see the game, right? There, she had already known how to identify the players, payoffs, and strategy, and that is the capability. And there, she practiced mapping her company, competitors, drivers of the ride, and riders as players in the game. And the outcome was that she realized that both driver incentives and rider discounts affected each other dynamically. Then she modeled the incentives, where you quantify motives for each player. And she used the payoff matrices to model driver loyalty versus multi platform switching. And she found drivers were maximizing short term surge income, not loyalty. The third step in a framework she used was to anticipate reactions. And there, one should be able to predict competitor and participant responses. Now, what Elena did was she ran simulations for price cuts versus driver bonus scenario, and she found that the model predicted competitors would counter price cuts faster than the driver bonuses. And then she reframed the strategy by where you need to suggest strategic, not tactical moves, which is what she wanted to do, right? So here she proposed a tiered driver loyalty program instead of just bonuses. And that created multi-period incentives, reducing the churn. And the last stage of our framework was to test and learn, where one would use small experiments to find the equilibrium. And there, Elena piloted the program in two cities with randomized driver groups and found that the driver churn dropped 30% and overall cost per ride was stable. So that was Elena's framework and how she applied. So let us look at the turning point in which Elena moved from theory to influence. So after months of analysis, Elena presented her findings to the management, and the findings were that if we stop treating incentives as short-term rewards and start viewing this as repeated game strategy, we will build stable loyalty and reduce competitive volatility. And her model shifted leadership thinking. How? They stopped frequent price wars, right? Introduce multi-stage loyalty benefits for drivers and balance incentive between short-term gains and long-term equilibrium. So that is how the theory turned to influencing decisions. Right. So through this solution, how did Elena build excellence in career through game theoretic thinking? Now, Elena's approach helped her stand out someone who would think in terms of systems, not silos. And she was soon promoted to strategic operations associate, and her framework was later adopted across multiple markets. Right. So, what were the results after 6 months? So, in terms of driver churn, before this strategy was implemented, it was 25%. It dropped to 17%, a significant drop. The incentive cost was rising 15% per quarter. That became stable. The market share, which was flat, started growing by 6%. And leadership, who kind of had a low trust in her as a new hire, she built that high trust and she became the strategy advisor for the leadership. So, what did Elena reflect? What was her reflection in the whole situation? So, Alina's reflection was that the game theory taught her to look at business as a living game, where every move changed the board, right? And she says that when she learned to anticipate reaction and align incentive, she stopped reacting and started designing outcomes. So that was her key learning, core learning from this initiative. So, what are the key lessons for students like you learning game theory? The first is related to the Nash equilibrium that you will learn. Now, this helps you identify stable win-win outcomes. So learn closely this Nash equilibrium. And an example of this would be to design incentive system where both employees and employers benefit. Then another concept you will learn is zero sum plus positive sum thinking, where it can help you in your career to recognize where cooperation creates value. And a good example of that will be to negotiate partnerships or team projects with shared rewards. Then there is a concept of repeated games that you will learn, where it helps you think long-term reputation over short-term gains, and that's a great thing for your career. It helps you build trust with your key stakeholders over multiple interactions. Then there is signaling and screening as a concept that you will learn, which basically can help you communicate values strategically in your career, and that you can use to craft resumes, interviews, and negotiation as credible signals, right? And finally, there is payoff metrics analysis that can help you compare strategies quantitatively in your career, and it helps you evaluate competing projects or pricing scenarios. So that those are the key lessons for students like you who are learning game theory. So let's summarize Elena's growth journey from a learner to strategic professional. She started as a theorist, who knew concepts like equilibrium and payoff, and she had an academic understanding in her state. And her kind of question that she asked was, "Can I explain the logic of this game?" Then she became an observer, where she started recognizing games in daily life, and she started developing pattern recognition as skill by asking questions like, "Who are the players and what are their incentives?" Then a third stage she moved into was as analyst, with when she started modeling strategic interactions, and there she started developing data and behavioral analysis. And the questions moved now to, what outcomes can I predict? The fourth stage was to become a strategist, where you start designing what can change the game. And here the focus is on system design, where you start asking questions like, how can I influence the equilibrium? And finally, as a leader, where you use game theory mindsets to shape organization, and there you focus on building strategic foresight by asking questions like, how can I create sustainable advantage? So that's Elena's growth journey. So let's take a look at a learning activity, game theory careers simulation, where the objective is to practice applying game theory thinking to real career situations. And I suggest you can do that as you go along in this course. And the steps you need to take is to pick a real world scenario, job offer negotiation, pricing decision, a stakeholder conflict, identify the players, strategy, payoffs, and information symmetry. Build a simple payoff matrix. Wait for to learn about how to do that, and then you do this. To visualize the incentive and apply game theory principles. Once you have learned all these principles, what is the equivalent? How can I shift it? And can you have a cooperation? With cooperation, can you yield better results, right? And then reflect on career insights you have gained. So, what are the final takeaways? Game theory and learning game theory is not about predicting, others. It's about thinking strategically when others don't. At an individual level, career excellence after game theory means, seeing every interaction as a strategic system, aligning incentives to create mutual value, win-win value, and moving from tactical moves to game design in shaping the environment itself. So let's take a look at some examples of career which you will again see as you go forward, where game theory can create advantages. There are some of them that you will see again. So there is a career path on business strategy and consulting, where game theory can add value by modeling competitors' reaction, pricing wars, and partnership game. Then there is data science and AI engineering, where you can use it in multi-agent systems, reinforcing learning, and auction design. Then in public policy and economics area, you can use game theory to design incentive compatible systems on taxation, voting, resource allocation. Then in marketing and product management, you can use game theory to predict consumer behavior, competitor launches, and brand positioning. And even in HR and leadership and negotiation, you can use it for improving stakeholder alignment, decision making, and cooperation. So what do we do next now? So we get on to learning the game theory. We start with this section on overview of game theory, where we will tell you how at an overall level can you use game theory to make better decisions. And we have some more cases coming up that you can take a look at. So thank you so much for watching this introductory case study in this course, Master in Game Theory. I hope you're beginning to learn new things, beginning to enjoy, and I do look forward to see you again in the next lecture. Please feel free to message me if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer your questions, and do download the PDF file to take a look at anything that you need.